7 reasons why associate dentists leave and how to keep them for the long term. Let's dive in. My name is Bryton. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Dentist Partner Pros, where we help private practice owners build practices they love to own, specifically by helping them hire and retain awesome staff. Okay, so let's jump into it. Associateship failures are a very, very big problem. And it's not just associateships in dentistry, but this is a problem in staffing and team across any industry, okay? I think it's 80% of team members end up turning over, and that's like typically within a year. It's a very high number. In dentistry specifically, 75% of them fail within a year. And so we're going to talk about the 7 reasons why associate dentists leave and potentially how to keep them for the long term, okay? So number 1 is the lack of mentorship and career growth. Okay, if you're listening to this and you're an associate dentist, how many of you want to jump into a practice where there's no opportunity to grow? You might jump into it for 6 months or a year, maybe speed up your skills and try to earn your stripes, if you will, but it's not something that you're going to be interested in for the long term, especially if you're a dentist that's looking to continue to grow, continue to make more money. Now, this might be a good path for some people, but for most people, they want to continue to grow in their skills and their development. As a dentist, your income is directly affected by your ability to continue to get better at dentistry. That's going to CE, that's being able to offer more specific type of treatments. If you're coming out of dental school, you might be competent in crowns and bridges, kind of the bread and butter stuff. The only way to get to where you can really ethically and competently offer implants or really well done endo or any of those types of things, you got to go to CE, you've got to upskill, you've got to have a place or a mentor in order to help teach you how to get there. So there's a few ways that you develop your skills. It's either through formal CE, which we love, we're huge fans of, it's something we look for in all of our candidates, or you have a fantastic, senior doctor in place that's actually mentoring you. Both go a really long ways, and they're one of the top reasons why younger dentists leave their current practice to go find new opportunities, is because the lack of mentorship and the lack of career growth. Okay. Number 2 is poor communication and misaligned expectations. I literally just did a separate video on a Reddit link that talked about how some practice owners aren't even putting together formal associate agreements or employment agreements. Talk about poor communication and misaligned expectations. I don't care who you are, if you do not have the actual expectations written down, it's going to be very, very difficult 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line to remember exactly what you all decided. It's so important to begin with the end in mind and have a great associate agreement in place, but also to be able to actually communicate and talk and set expectations. Too often, we're talking to practice owners who didn't even tell their staff that they were thinking of hiring or transitioning through another doctor, and that new doctor shows up on Monday and they're like, hey, congratulations, we've got another doctor, let's figure this out. That's just not a recipe for success. Instead, it's all about setting expectations from the very beginning and communicating from the very beginning and involving your team and everyone in the entire process. How exactly are we going to bring on this person? How are we going to onboard them? How are we going to set expectations together between us, doctor to doctor, but also with all the staff, all the team, and with patients? The lack of communication there can really, really set a associateship up to fail quickly. Okay, so the first one, if you remember, lack of mentorship and career growth. The second one is poor communication and misaligned expectations. Number 3 reasons associates leave is because compensation that doesn't reflect their value. Okay, compensation that doesn't reflect their value. Most commonly, I see this as a result of a lack of being paid on a sort of percentage basis. And there's 2 ways that this gets affected. Number 1 is we put them on some sort of minimum salary daily guarantee. They don't have the upside. Okay. The opposite also happens if we put them 100% on a percentage of collections, adjusted production, or whatever. but we aren't feeding them enough patience to continue to grow, produce, and do more work. Okay? So the compensation that doesn't reflect their value isn't just the terms we agree to up front, it's how much we're feeding this new doctor to actually get busy enough for them to want to stick around for a long time. And if you're looking back at the previous ones, so this would be helping them continue to do upskill and do bigger types of cases and procedures. It's also making sure that they have plenty of patient flow. They're seeing new patients. They're not just doing hygiene, but they're also, getting sent new patients and seeing emergencies, and they're doing work that's actually going to help them produce. If you're a practice owner and you're considering bringing on an associate, one of the things you should ask yourself is, am I willing to feed them first before I get fed myself? If you are, that's a fantastic sign that you should consider bringing on an associate, because it goes such a long ways if you have that abundant, growth-minded, I'm going to feed them first, support them, mentor them, coach them, not just on how to do clinical dentistry, but also how to talk with patients, how to talk with staff, how do we treatment plan, how do we sell treatment. All those things go a really long ways in helping this new doctor grow and continue to make more money. The other thing that we've seen hurt practices with this is obviously if you're in a lot of PPOs and you don't have a really great place to, you're not great at collecting the money that's actually being produced. That can be a big problem too, okay? So number 4, the fourth reason why we see associateships leave is just that there's a lack of cultural fit. A lack of cultural fit. Now, culture isn't just the values you write up on the whiteboard or you print it in the break room and you talk about maybe once a year. Culture is the way that you act when nobody else is watching. It's the consistencies, the behaviors that not just you as the practice owner, but you as an entire staff and team operate. It's the unseen kind of, maybe sometimes even unsaid expectations, but are reinforced through set expectations. It's the way that people continue to show up. So let me give an example. This is kind of a stark example, but it's an example we've seen before. So we do a lot of work with holistic or biological dentists, and they have a very unique niche within dentistry, okay? And they work with unique patients that really care and really prioritize their health, making sure it's totally holistic and biological. It's doing all those things, okay? Now, if you were to bring an associate or a new doctor into that practice that has no interest in whole health or biological or holistic mindset, they're more of the cosmetically driven producing, which is fine. Like, I'm not judging. Like, there's a place for that in the market. But if you're bringing in someone that's very driven by that, and you're asking them to spend 90 minutes with a new patient where they want to spend 30 minutes, that's going to just that's not really going to align. But we see it happen all the time because, maybe they're a good dentist. But just because they're a good dentist doesn't mean they match with how you view dentistry, how you view leadership, how you view money, how you like to communicate, how driven are you, how hardworking are you, how hardworking is your staff, all those things. When we hire just for clinical competence or just for skill-based hiring, we totally miss the other half, which is cultural, character-based hiring. And that's the part we see get missed all the time. Mostly, I think, because as practice owners, maybe we aren't, or you're not as familiar with how do we do that, and we're very comfortable and confident talking about the clinical side of stuff. Okay, so looking back, we've talked about the lack of mentorship and career growth, poor communication and misaligned expectations, compensation that doesn't reflect their value, and fourth is the cultural fit. Let's keep going. Number 5, the 5th reason we see associates leave is insufficient autonomy and clinical freedom. Okay, we see this all the time in DSOs. We talk with a ton of associates that are in DSOs and wanting to get into private practice because they're lacking that autonomy, that clinical freedom. Sometimes it's because they're being pushed to hit certain quotas to produce a certain amount, and so they feel this need to maybe overdiagnose sometimes, maybe overdiagnose or over-treatment plan. And that doesn't feel in alignment with how they want to be doing dentistry. Or the other side of we've seen happen, we've seen practice owners put handcuffs, very, very strict handcuffs. And I'm all for training wheels, just not handcuffs. handcuffs of saying you can't do any of these types of any of this type of dentistry because I need to do all of that dentistry. You need to just stick with these things, and I'll do all these other things. Great in theory, really, really bad for long-term relationship building and long-term growth. Okay, so insufficient autonomy and clinical freedom. I don't know any dentist, doctor, or even team member outside of dentistry specifically that wants to be told exactly where to do their job, how to do it, without any sort of freedom or autonomy on the ability to make decisions. Those people tend to get locked in. They're just coders and just sitting there and not really thinking. That's more of a robot mentality in my mindset. So anyways, that's another reason we see people leave, is insufficient autonomy and clinical freedom. Okay, number 6, okay, limited patient volume or production opportunities. This goes back to that compensation that doesn't reflect their value, but specifically, we're not feeding them enough work. Nobody wants to show up to work and be bored. It's a really bad recipe, especially when you've invested so much time and resources and energy and money to learn specific skills, and then to not be able to use them is a recipe for disaster. So limiting patient volume or production opportunities because as a practice owner or maybe senior doctor, you feel the need to feed yourself first, leads to a really, and it causes associates to leave very quickly, okay? So the last one is, in order to retain associates, you need to begin with a win-win mindset. You need to make sure you're ready to feed them, you're ready to mentor them, coach them, and if not, then those expectations, and it needs to be communicated and clearly communicated up front, whether that's in an informal associate agreement and in tandem with actual talking to each other and setting expectations of saying, hey, I'd love to mentor you. You can expect, maybe twice a month we'll sit down, we'll review cases, or you can come to me anytime, or hey, I'm going to be too busy. I don't have the time to kind of mentor you. Everything you want to learn is going to have to be CE, but I'll invest in that with you. Whatever it is, you got to think win-win, abundant-minded, and if you follow and you avoid these 6 other steps, if you're making sure that you set up career growth and mentorship, if you have good communication, and you set clear expectations, if you have good compensation that reflects value, you hire for cultural fit, you make sure they have autonomy and clinical freedom, and you're feeding them plenty of patience to be busy, you're going to set yourself up for a lot higher chance of success with hiring an associate. Frankly, you can take these lessons, these principles, and you can apply it to any role, any position across any industry, but these are the ones we see specifically for dentists. Hope this was helpful. If so, like and subscribe and tell us what you think.